Hello and welcome back to Cooking Wild with Ray. Today we'll be doing one of my most complex recipes ever attempted on this YouTube channel, doing bear Wellington with my kind of twist. It's a long recipe to do compared to my normal cooking. From start time to plate time, almost 7 hours. So hopefully you can follow this through, do it at home with whatever kind of protein you want. Beef, elk, bison, caribou, moose, deer, whichever way you want. And remember, Wellington doesn't have to be done with tenderloin only. You can substitute it with roast. Today we'll be using a small bear roast instead of beef fillet, some minced garlic, some real maple syrup, some Dijon mustard to give it some extra kick, and some lemon juice. For this, we're going to be mixing it all up into a plastic bag, so our roast has a little bit of a swim in there for a few hours just to absorb all the flavors. Here we're going to give it roughly 4 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. Next will be a heaping teaspoon of minced garlic. After that, we're going to give it roughly 4 to 5 tablespoons of real maple syrup. And just for that extra tenderizer, we're going to give it about a tablespoon of real lemon juice. There we go. We can just close all this up, mix it all up, and make sure we get a good even coating all over our piece of protein. This is just step one of a few steps to do my version of a beef Wellington, but with bear. Here we're getting into making our puff pastry. I've got a cup and a half of all-purpose flour and a pinch of regular table salt. This, I'm going to mix this up thoroughly and set it aside while I combine my other wet ingredients. Right here I've got about 5 ounces of frozen butter that I'm going to grate real fine, and this will be used as a grate to mix in with my flour. And I've got a tablespoon of lemon juice and roughly 7.5 to 8 ounces, 7.5 to 8 tablespoons of water at room temperature. So this, I'm going to incorporate these into my flour mixture. And I won't be adding all of the water in at once. I'll be adding it a little at a time just to get everything incorporated. Here gives you an idea. I've got my butter finely grated. It was frozen when I ran it through a fine cheese grater. And that block of butter makes a fairly good size mound of fine. So this will be incorporated into my flour slowly, a little bit at a time, while I stir my flour. And here you just want to make sure you bring it in slowly, a little bit at a time, so it all gets incorporated before you start adding any lemon juice or water. This is a helpful trick to make sure it comes up light and fluffy and multiple layers without doing many folds. And I'll get this all incorporated and I'll get back to you. All right, here you can see I've got all of my butter incorporated. It's got just a slight crumble to it right now. No large lumps. And this is where I'm going to put in my entire tablespoon of lemon juice. And here again, I'm going to keep working it till it's incorporated. It's going to start to lump up. And from this point, this is where you're going to get your hands dirty. You're going to add a little bit of water at a time and keep working it, working it, working it until you have a nice thin dough construction. So I'll keep adding just a little bit of water. Make sure I got all my butter out of my whisk here. So you're going to add a little bit of water, keep working it. Add a little bit more and keep working it. So you're going to get your hands dirty doing all of this, but in the long run, it'll be worth it. All right, here I've got all my lemon juice, butter, flour, and I still have roughly an ounce of water left out of my initial 8 ounces. I don't want to overwork my dough, because if you do it, that's when it becomes tough. So here, you can see I've already started to layer up. So this is going to make a nice flaky dough. So I'm going to make a round ball, and I'm going to wrap it in some parchment paper and put it in a cool spot for about an hour before I start to roll it. And here it doesn't need anything fancy. Just give it a fold, 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 and a roll, and just put it somewhere where it's going to stay cool for about an hour. All right, it's been roughly an hour here. My puff pastry's had a time to rest. We're going to lightly flour a rolling area and get this out and get it ready to have a happy marriage with our bear. Here, you don't want to work your dough too much. The more you work it, the tougher it gets. So you get your rolling pin ready. Don't work it too much. Roll, flip. You're going to want to thin this out, but not have it overly worked. You get the idea here. I'll get this ready to the right thickness that I can wrap my bear with and get it ready to go in the oven. All right, here I've got my pastry rolled out, relatively about 1/4 of an inch thick. You don't want to have it too thick for your Wellington, otherwise it's going to stay moist and it's going to turn to a soggy paste. So here I'm going to get this rolled up, ready to set aside, and I'm going to sear up my bear and get it ready for a happy marriage.